Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all you Sip&Talkers out there, wherever you are. Welcome back.
Welcome. So we're diving right in today because we got some great feedback.
We did, and we really appreciate it. A listener wrote in and basically asked, hey, you guys always say you don't target any specific country or group, right?
Right.
So how come it feels like China comes up a lot?
And that is a completely fair question. It's something we've thought about, and we get it. We admit, when you look at global politics, the world economy, China is just a main character in almost every major story right now.
It really is. It's like if you're recapping Game of Thrones, you're going to talk about the Targaryens a lot. Not because you're biased, but because, well, they're the ones with the dragons, and they're constantly, doing stuff.
We're not targeting China. It's more that world news is orbiting China. We're just the people doing the homework, reading what all the major international outlets are discussing, and then, breaking it down here.
And most of you seem to love hearing about it. But we do want to be super clear on our mission statement here. It's simple. We criticize events, never entire ethnic groups.
We analyze policy. We don't mock the people living under those policies.
And our whole goal is to encourage you to think for yourself, to use logic. I mean, look, if Norway suddenly became the source of 20 massive global news stories in a row,
we would be talking about Norway every single week.
We'd be all fjords and salmon all the time. But that seems unlikely. I think they're pretty busy fishing.
So just to put a button on it, no bias, no agenda. We just follow the heat.
Yeah.
Wherever the global news story is hottest, that's where we're going to be.
It just so happens that lately the news cycle related to China updates as fast as the Wall Street Journal's stock ticker.
But in the spirit of that listener's feedback, we made a real effort for today. We've dug up some genuinely fascinating and frankly absurd stories from all over the globe, completely outside that sphere.
For a little while anyway. Can we really avoid it completely? We'll see. We've got some wild stuff to share, and then we're going to talk about the incredible laid-back spirit of Thailand and how it's being tested.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Today's topic, Beyond Sanuk, when Thai chill meets global mayhem. And yes, the elephant in the room.
Let's start with Section 1, Global Mayhem.
Our first stop on this tour of international absurdity is a perfect example of the clash between the virtual world and very real, very physical consequences. We're headed to Malaysia.
Okay, this story is wild. Get this. Over a 5-year span, illegal crypto mining operations in Malaysia stole, wait for it, $1.1 billion worth of electricity.
Billion, with a B. It's just a mind-boggling number.
It is. We always talk about Bitcoin being this, intangible, decentralized thing floating in the ether.
Yeah, digital gold.
Right. But this just slams home the reality that creating it requires a colossal amount of physical, real-world resources. And in this case, that creation was fueled by just massive industrial-scale theft.
And this wasn't, a few people running some rigs in their basement. The source material here is pretty clear. They were bypassing electrical meters on a massive scale.
How are they even doing that?
We're talking about huge, unauthorized taps straight into the main power lines, directly into substations. The police reports literally described the meters they didn't bypass as spinning, and I'm quoting here, like electric fans.
Wow. Just picture that. An industrial power meter that's supposed to measure huge amounts of energy, and it's just a blur.
Yeah.
Like a kid's pinwheel in a hurricane.
Exactly. The sheer amount of electricity being pulled is hard to comprehend.
That image alone just screams regulatory failure. I mean, how on earth does theft on that scale, we're talking the equivalent of a whole city's power consumption, go unnoticed for 5 years?
It points to some really systemic problems. You have these miners, they set up in remote industrial parks, old warehouses, and they're using pretty sophisticated ways to bypass the grid.
But someone should have noticed.
Someone should have. But the core failure seems to be governmental. A lack of regular audits on the infrastructure. The penalties for getting caught were probably too weak to be a deterrent. And, you always have to wonder about corruption. Potential for compromised enforcement.
It's a classic case of fast-moving tech just completely outrunning these old, analog, slow-moving government systems.
And what's really fascinating is why this became such a hotspot. It wasn't just Malaysia. This is part of a much bigger global story.
Ah, right. This ties into the great crypto migration.
Precisely. Back in 2021, China brought down the hammer. A complete, total, nationwide ban on all cryptocurrency mining.
So overnight, you have this enormous billion-dollar industry with all this hardware and nowhere to plug it in.
They had to pack up their servers and go shopping for a new home. And they were looking for a very specific combination of things.
Let me guess. Number 1. Cheap electricity.
The cheaper, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, ideally a cool climate to help with the servers overheating.
And number 3, and this is the big one, minimal government oversight. Basically a place where no one's going to ask too many questions.
You nailed it. And so they flocked to places like Kazakhstan, parts of Texas, and crucially for this story, Southeast Asia. They found countries that offered cheap, often state-subsidized power.
Which is often, by the way, dirty power, like coal-fired plants.
A very good point. And in Malaysia, they found that perfect storm. Subsidized energy costs combined with a regulatory environment that just wasn't ready for them. It was ripe for exploitation.
So the real cost here isn't just the $1.1 billion that the Malaysian power company lost. It's a global issue. You have this speculative financial game mining digital coins that imposes these predatory real-world costs on local communities.
Yes. The profits get scattered globally to anonymous wallets, but the cost, the crumbling infrastructure, the strain on the grid, the pollution from burning more coal to meet demand, the eventual price hikes for regular citizens, that's all left behind for the local people to deal with.
It's a digital speculation bubble causing a very physical tragedy. Absolutely stunning.
Okay, from massive, almost abstract financial crime, let's pivot to something much more personal and honestly chilling. The reality of thought crime in Venezuela.
Yeah, this one is tough. It is maybe the most sobering story we're looking at today. It just shows the absolute extreme that some regimes will go to crush any form of dissent.
The core fact is just so stark. A female doctor in Venezuela was sentenced to prison.
And not just for a few years.
30 years in prison for treason.
30 years, that's a life sentence. For a doctor or professional, what could she have possibly done to be considered a traitor to the state?
She sent a private voice message on WhatsApp. And in that message, she criticized President Maduro.
That's it. A private voice note on an app that's supposed to be encrypted.
That's it. A private spoken complaint. We don't even know what she said specifically, but it was enough.
That is absolutely terrifying. I mean, think about it. We use these apps every single day to vent, right? Complain about your boss, about traffic, about politics.
All the time.
The idea that one of those private, fleeting, spoken thoughts could be twisted into a foundational crime against the state. That's the end of free thought. Treason for voice memo is. It's just dystopian.
The key here is how they're defining treason. They are stretching the definition of that word to mean basically anything they want it to mean. It's a legal tool used to silence political speech. It completely dissolves the line between, having a private opinion and committing a capital crime.
And the immediate question that pops into my head is, how did they even get the message? If it's encrypted, the tech is supposed to be secure.
Well, a regime like that doesn't need to break the encryption. They just need to break the people.
So it's the human factor.
It always is. The weakest link. Was she betrayed by the person she sent it to? A friend, a family member, a colleague? Did that person get threatened by the state and just hand over their phone? We don't know the specifics.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how they got it. The result is the same, and that's the point.
Exactly. The point is judicial intimidation.
Yeah.
This doctor's sentence is not just about punishing her. It's a broadcast to every single person in Venezuela.
The message is, don't even whisper. Don't complain. Don't even think a critical thought in private. Because we can hear you, and we can make you disappear from society forever.
It's a chilling effect, taken to its logical extreme. This isn't just censorship like deleting a post. This is psychological warfare. It puts Venezuela squarely in that global trend of authoritarian states, using technology not just to watch, but to control thought itself, making your private life completely public property.
Yes, wow. Okay, 2 incredibly heavy, high-stakes stories. Maybe let's shift to something a little lighter, but in its own way. It's just as telling about global anxieties. We're going to New Zealand to talk about AI and book covers.
Yes, the great New Zealand AI cover scandal. This is the perfect definition of a cultural boundary test.
Okay, so set the scene.
You have the Auckland Book Awards. It's the most prestigious literary award in New Zealand. A huge deal for authors there.
And 2 authors, award-winning authors, were disqualified.
Correct. Not because of anything they wrote. The books themselves were fine. They were disqualified because the cover art for their novels was made using AI generation tools.
Wait, hold on. They wrote the entire book. Hundreds of pages of human creativity, but they got kicked out because the picture on the front was made with an AI prompt.
That's the story.
That feels like a huge overreaction, doesn't it?
It seems like it, but it taps into this really deep, almost existential panic that's happening in creative fields right now. The whole debate boils down to one question. What counts as a literary work?
And the awards committee is basically saying the cover is part of it.
They are. They're arguing that the entire creative package, from the first word to the cover design, has to be 100% human-made. But that creates a very, very slippery slope.
It really does. Because, okay, think about it. For decades, artists have used Photoshop to create and manipulate cover images. Photoshop is an incredibly complex digital tool.
That's fine.
Perfectly acceptable. But if I use a different digital tool where I type in a complex set of instructions, like create a photorealistic image of a noir detective standing in the rain in 1940s Chicago, suddenly that's forbidden. Where's the actual philosophical line there?
There really isn't a clear one, and that's the problem. What you're seeing is the traditional cultural establishment panicking. They don't see AI as the next step in tools, like the invention of the camera or the synthesizer. They see it as an alien invader that threatens the very definition of human creativity.
So their strategy is just to build a giant wall, an immediate hardline ban, over-prevention, basically.
Yes, to stop the blurring of the line before it even starts.
But if you ban AI for the cover, what's next? I use AI-powered grammar tools to check my writing. A nonfiction author might use AI to analyze huge data sets for their research. A novelist might use a program to help structure their plot.
Exactly. That's the slippery slope everyone pointed out immediately. Do you start disqualifying people for using Grammarly? If you punish the tool, not the final product, you end up having to ban every digital aid that helps in the creative process. It becomes less about the art and more about a kind of cultural Luddite movement.
And it's so interesting to contrast this deep anxiety in New Zealand with what's happening elsewhere.
Oh, it's a night and day difference.
Mm-hmm.
While the Kiwi literary world is trying to put up these puritanical walls, you have companies in other parts of the world, especially places with looser IP laws, just going all in.
They're not worried about the soul of art. They're worried about market share.
Totally. They're using generative AI to pump out content at an incredible speed.
Oh.
It's leading to what some people are calling fast plagiarism, where the goal is just volume and speed.
And meanwhile, in the US and the EU, you have these gigantic lawsuits happening right now, fighting over the very core of it all. Whether it's even legal for these AI models to be trained on existing human-made art in writing in the first place.
So while New Zealand is worried about the cover of the book, the rest of the world is in a knockdown, drag-out fight over the library the AI read to learn how to make the cover.
It's a global mess, but a fascinating one.
Okay.
I think that's a perfect transition. While all these countries are tied in knots over theft, free speech, and digital art, there's a place that seems to specialize in looking at total chaos and just shrugging.
And not just shrugging, turning it into a party. Let's go to Thailand.
Excellent, because this is where we see a massive disaster strike, and the response is just, hey, this could be fun.
This brings us to our core dive today, the Pa Jit restaurant incident. This story went globally viral in late 2025, and it is the perfect embodiment of the Thai cultural response to, well, anything.
All right, so paint the picture for us. This wasn't some high-end five-star restaurant in Bangkok, right?
Not at all. Pa Jit is a local spot. It's been around for about 30 years in Nakhon Pathom, which is a city just outside Bangkok. It's a beloved riverside place right on the Tai Chin River.
So prime real estate for a flood.
Exactly. And in November of 2025, the heavy rains came, the river breached its banks, and the restaurant was inundated. We're talking water up to your knees throughout the entire dining area.
Okay, so in the West, that's an immediate disaster. You shut down, you call the insurance company, you start calculating months of lost revenue. It's a crisis.
That is the standard operating procedure, yes. But here, after the owner's initial shock and, dismay, something different happened. The owner looked around and noticed the customers weren't running away screaming.
What were they doing?
They were kind of amused by it. They were finding it fun.
They were enjoying being in a flooded restaurant.
They were. And this is where the owner had this moment of pure genius, or maybe pure Sanuk. He saw that the floodwaters had brought in all these wild fish from the river swimming around the tables.
No way.
Yes. So instead of pumping the water out, he leaned in. He transformed the disaster into the main attraction.
I remember seeing the pictures. It was insane. You have people sitting at tables, their legs dangling in knee-deep water, and they're literally feeding the fish that are swimming around their feet.
And the waiters are just wading through the whole thing in these big waterproof boots, serving food. It became an overnight sensation on social media, a netizen check-in point.
You had to go there and get your picture taken.
You had to. The flood, which should have been a catastrophic liability, became the restaurant's single greatest asset. It was chaos, converted into a business boom.
This can't just be one quirky restaurant owner, though. This kind of reaction has to come from a much deeper shared cultural philosophy.
It absolutely does. And to get it, you really need to understand 3 core tenets of Thai culture. This is the operating system that informs their reaction to everything from a national disaster to bad traffic. It's Sanuk, Sabai, and my Penrai.
Okay, let's break those down. First one, Sanuk. That's the fun one.
Yeah. Literally. Sanuk is the principle that life should be fun. It's the pursuit of enjoyment. The idea is that any activity, whether it's work or commuting or, navigating a flood, should have an element of pleasure in it. It's not optional, it's mandatory.
So the Paget owner saw a flooded dining room and didn't think insurance claim. He thought, novelty water feature. That's Sanuk in action.
Pure Sanuk. Then you have Sabai. This is a little more complex.
It's usually translated as like comfort or relaxation.
It's more than that. It's a whole lifestyle philosophy. It's the active avoidance of stress, of conflict, of urgency. It favors a slower, more relaxed, relationship-focused approach to life and work. It is the cultural opposite of the hyper-efficient 247 grind culture that you see in a lot of other parts of Asia or the West.
Right, the hustle culture. Sabai is the anti-hustle.
Exactly. And that sets up some major conflicts we'll get to later. But the third piece, the glue that holds it all together, is the national catchphrase. My Penrai.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. Never mind.
It's the ultimate social lubricant. That one survey we saw from 2023 showed that something like 87% of Thais use it constantly. It's a tool to de-escalate any situation, to lower the social temperature, to maintain harmony, and most importantly, to accept hardship without a huge, dramatic emotional reaction.
So the waiter is slow, my Penrai. The bus is late, my Penrai. Your restaurant is full of river water and fish, my Penrai. Let's make the best of it.
It's a philosophical acceptance that life is messy and imperfect, and it's deeply, deeply tied to their religious beliefs.
The country is overwhelmingly Buddhist.
Theravada Buddhist, specifically. And a central concept in this branch of Buddhism is anicca, impermanence.
The idea that nothing lasts, everything is always changing.
Exactly. So when a disaster hits, like a flood, the ingrained philosophical response is to recognize its temporary nature. This too shall pass. Suffering comes from clinging to the way things used to be, dry.
So you let go of your attachment to having a dry floor.
You let go of the attachment, you focus on living in the present moment, and you deal with the reality in front of you. This framework builds incredible emotional resilience.
Which means the Padishit restaurant is not an anomaly. It's actually a perfect expression of a historical pattern.
Oh, absolutely. Look at the Great Flood in Bangkok back in 2011. It was a massive, months-long disaster. International reporters who were there were just stunned.
What did they see?
They saw Bangkok residents in waist-deep water, still having parties, delivering pizzas by boat. They didn't stop living. They just integrated the flood into their daily lives. They adapted.
Or look at the air pollution crisis in Chiang Mai in 2023. The air quality was dangerously bad from agricultural burning. A huge health crisis.
A huge crisis. But that Chiang Mai University study found that 70% of the local residents just had a My Penrai attitude about it. They saw it as a kind of seasonal tradition that would, eventually go away. They weren't demanding the kind of immediate, aggressive government crackdown you might see in other countries.
That is a profound level of tolerance for things that would cause outrage elsewhere. Which brings us to the big question. Is there a limit? Can even this incredibly resilient, chill philosophy withstand the full force of 21st century global pressure?
And that is the friction point. That's where things start to crack.
So we've established this baseline of incredible Thai resilience, but every material has a breaking point. So when does the slow, relaxed, low-pressure model of Sabai finally meet a force it can't just absorb?
The breaking point comes when that philosophy of Sabai, which we can think of as a low involution model, collides head-on with the high-speed, high-pressure demands of external global forces.
Okay, low involution. Let's define that a little more clearly.
Right. So involution is a term used to describe this state of intense hyper-competition where everyone is working harder and harder for smaller and smaller gains. Think of the crazy work hours and high-stress academic pressure in some other East Asian economies. That's high involution.
Okay, so Thailand's culture of Sabai is the opposite. It's low involution. The social goal isn't to be the most optimized, most efficient person, but to be balanced, happy, and stress-free.
Precisely. So, to use your example from before, a Thai waiter might take an extra 10 minutes to bring you the check because they're having a nice conversation with a coworker. In a low involution system, that's fine. The relationship is prioritized over pure speed.
But now you bring in a tourist from a high-involution culture, someone from New York or Seoul, and to them, a 10-minute delay for the check isn't a social interaction, it's a service failure.
And that's where the friction starts. The tourist gets angry, the waiter is confused by the tourist's urgency, and you have this tiny everyday culture clash.
But the pressure on Thailand now is so much bigger than just a few impatient tourists. The data we're looking at from 2023 through 2025 shows a stress test happening to their entire society.
And this is where we have to talk about the elephant in the room. We have to analyze this using the hard data, looking at it as a massive external shock, not as a criticism of any one group of people. The China factor, because of its sheer scale and speed, is currently the single biggest stressor on the Thai system.
Let's start with the most dramatic number, the raw volume of new people and what that did to the housing market.
By 2024, Thailand saw a 320% surge in long-term residency visas, like the elite and LTR visas, being issued to Chinese nationals.
320%. That's not a gradual increase. That's a demographic shockwave.
It is. And it's so concentrated that you have areas in cities like Chiang Mai that Thai locals on social media have started calling China's 25th province. It's a reflection of the overwhelming economic and social presence.
So a surge like that has an immediate massive impact on the cost of living for the average Thai person.
It absolutely does. It triggers an affordability crisis. Between 2023 and 2025, condo prices in the major cities shot up by 40 to 80%.
40 to 80% in 2 years.
And the Thai National Housing Authorities came out and publicly confirmed that this wave of Chinese capital was the primary driver of that increase.
So if you're a middle-class person in Bangkok, a young professional trying to buy your first apartment, how can you possibly maintain a My Pen Rai attitude when you are being priced out of your own city?
You can't. That's the breaking point.
Yeah.
The philosophy gives way to economic reality. Thai social media just exploded with hashtags like Chinese driving up prices. The problem shifts from being an abstract cultural difference to a very real, tangible threat to your family's future. The cultural shock absorber it bottoms out.
And it seems like the Thai regulatory system, which is built for that slower, sub-I pace of life, was just completely unprepared to handle this tsunami of people and money.
It was overwhelmed. The speed and scale of the influx created huge loopholes and opportunities for, let's call them, gray industries.
Right, so Thai police basically spent 2023 and 2024 playing catch-up. The numbers showed over 3,000 arrests in that period connected to Chinese-run illegal operations.
A massive number.
What kind of operations are we talking about?
All sorts. Huge illegal online gambling rings, sophisticated global call center scams that were targeting people all over the world, but also, and this is pretty audacious, illegal, unlicensed hospitals.
Illegal hospitals?
Yes, pop-up clinics and even small hospitals that were catering exclusively to Chinese nationals, operating completely outside of Thai medical regulations, not paying taxes, who knows what their standards of care were.
Wow, and all of this activity, both legal and illegal, puts an incredible strain on legitimate public services, especially healthcare.
The strain is undeniable. The data from the tourist islands like Phuket and Samui in 2025 is just staggering. Chinese medical tourists were taking up between 60 and 70% of the beds and services in the private hospital system.
60 to 70%. So the private medical infrastructure is basically being co-opted. If you're a local Thai resident with good insurance and you need surgery or you need to see a specialist, you're suddenly facing huge waits.
Exactly. It got so bad that Thai medical associations had to issue public statements. They were warning that the system was at a breaking point and that locals were struggling to get timely care. It's impossible to tell someone whose father needs an urgent heart operation to just be chill and say My Pen Rai.
So you have the economic pressure, the healthcare pressure, and then you have the friction of just daily life. The small-scale collisions of different social norms in public.
The public decorum clash, yes. In 2025, you had all these videos going viral, things that seemed small but add up. People cutting in long lines, having extremely loud conversations on their phones in quiet places, and the big one, eating on the Bangkok BTS, the SkyTrain.
Which is a huge no-no. It's strictly forbidden, and it's seen as really disrespectful.
Deeply disrespectful. When these kinds of incidents happen over and over and over again because of the sheer volume of new people, locals stop seeing it as just a few rude individuals. They start to see it as a systemic cultural clash.
It becomes a pattern.
It becomes a pattern. And the reaction on Thai TikTok was a perfect measure of this. The hashtag that translates to Chinese manners got over 1 billion views. 1 billion. That is the sound of society's frustration boiling over.
Which brings us to the most crucial piece of data. The evidence that the philosophy of My Pen Rye itself is starting to crack under the strain.
The evidence is very compelling. That 2024 Chiang Mai University survey is the smoking gun. They asked locals directly how they felt about the recent wave of Chinese migrants.
And what was the number?
Only 28% gave the traditional, easygoing My Pen Rye response. A huge majority, 62%, said they were actively dissatisfied.
For a culture that is built on avoiding confrontation and maintaining harmony, having a majority of people openly state their dissatisfaction, that's a massive deal. The social defense mechanism is failing.
And you see this reflected in the language, in the memes. The new cynical version of the phrase started circulating. My pen rye daijinyo gang yu bi pai lo. It's okay. But there are just too many Chinese now. That little addition at the end says everything. It's the sound of cultural tolerance hitting its limit against economic and demographic reality.
And all of this public pressure finally forced the government to act. This wasn't just a tourism issue anymore. It became a national policy crisis.
It did. The Thai government started moving to aggressively crack down on illegal visas, illegal work, unregulated capital flows. And the Prime Minister's statement was the real turning point. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, that Thailand welcomes tourists, but it cannot become a colony.
Wow. Using that word colony shows that this has moved way beyond an economic debate. It's now being seen through the lens of national identity and cultural survival.
The whole story is this perfect real-world case study. What happens when a low-involution society is hit with a high-velocity wave of globalization it just wasn't built to handle.
Okay, so we've been on quite a journey. From billion-dollar power theft in Malaysia and thought crime in Venezuela, through the anxieties of the New Zealand literary scene and into this incredibly deep look at Thailand's cultural breaking point.
And that brings us full circle right back to that listener's question that we started with. Why the focus on the elephant in the room? I think the situation in Thailand provides the most objective answer possible.
It really does. When you do a deep data-driven analysis of a massive global trend, in this case, sudden, huge capital flight and migration, you just have to follow the numbers.
And the numbers on the visa applications, the real estate charts, the hospital occupancy rates in Thailand, they all point to the same maximum variable, the same source of the shockwave.
We really want to stress this. The frequency of the discussion is because China is, right now, the maximum driver or the maximum affected party in so many different global systems. You can't have an honest conversation about supply chains or the future of AI or international finance without constantly accounting for the decisions and the economic velocity coming from there.
So let's just quickly reiterate our strategy here, how we try to balance this. We are committed to analyzing the phenomenon, not the people.
Exactly. When we talk about a story like the one in Venezuela, a 30-year sentence for a private message, that is a horrifying example of authoritarianism.
And what we do is immediately connect that specific awful case to the bigger global trend of digital authoritarianism. We analyze the technology of control, the legal frameworks that allow it, which is a model being exported and adopted by struggling regimes all over the world. It's about the system, not the nationality.
And we always try to bring in global comparisons. If we talk about the aggressive, high-speed use of AI in some markets, we immediately contrast it with the cultural panic in New Zealand or the huge legal battles happening over copyright in the US and Europe.
By doing that, you elevate the conversation. It stops being a critique of one country and becomes a universal discussion about power, ethics, technology, and governance. And these are things that affect every single one of us, no matter where we live. Our job is just to give you the facts so you can form your own critical thoughts.
And with that, let's leave you with one final image to think about. The owner of the Pajit flood restaurant. He was faced with a chaotic, destructive force. A flood.
The standard Western mindset would be to think about liability, insurance, who's to blame, how to fix it.
But he didn't do that. He looked at the chaos, embraced the spirit of Sanuk, and found the fun in it. He turned what should have been a crippling liability into his single greatest asset.
Which leaves a pretty big question for you to think about. When those chaotic global forces hit your life, and they will, whether it's a market shock, a new technology like AI that disrupts your job, or a political shift, what's your first instinct?
Do you default to trying to fix it, to assign blame, to get back to how things were?
Or could you try to channel some of that Sanuk spirit? To accept the impermanence of the dry floor, so to speak, and figure out how to turn that unavoidable, messy problem into a unique, new opportunity.
A powerful thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this dive into global absurdities and cultural resilience.
We really hope this discussion helps clarify our commitment here. To always criticize policy and events, never people or nations.
Absolutely. Stay curious, keep thinking critically, and make sure you're subscribed to Sip and Talk.
And hey, go check out our friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life. He's got some really fun memes and awesome travel vlogs.
We'll catch you next time.